A mother's breastfeeding experience changes drastically over time, starting with her child's birth throughout the months of her baby's life. Today, we continue our conversation in our series called Breastfeeding Expectations. Over the next 12 months, we will be following 3 new moms along their breastfeeding journeys, learning how they cope with breastfeeding challenges and settle into a breastfeeding rhythm with their babies. This is the Boob Group, episode 15.
Breast milk, it does a baby good.
Silly daddy, boobs are for babies.
I make milk. What's your superpower?
If my breastfeeding offends you, put a blanket over your head.
Dairy diva.
Don't be lactose intolerant.
Nursing nature's own breast enhancement.
Meals on heels.
Whoever said there's no use crying over spilled milk never had to pump.
Breast milk. All others are inferior.
Whatever your point of view, we're here to support your breastfeeding goals. We're the Boob Group, because mothers know breast. Welcome to the Boob Group, broadcasting from the Birth Education Center of San Diego. I'm your host, Robin Kaplan. I'm also a certified lactation consultant and owner of the San Diego Breastfeeding Center. At the Boob Group, we are your online support group for all things related to breastfeeding. Did you know that we send out a monthly newsletter? This is a great way to get great additional breastfeeding information, as well as see exclusive behind-the-scenes content from our show, learn about special giveaways, discounts, and more. You can find the newsletter sign-up on the Boob Group website, which is theboobgroup.com. Now it's time for me to introduce our lovely moms in the studio, who we will be following for now the next 11 months. Ladies, would you like to introduce yourself, as well as we also have 2 out of the 3 babies in the studio as well, which you might hear a little squawking in the background. So if you have your baby in the studio, you can introduce her, or I guess the 2 ladies are actually here. So if you'll introduce yourself and your babies.
Sure. Hi, I'm Cherry Christensen. I'm 31 and I work in consumer research. I have 1 brand new baby who is with us here today, Miss Kelly, and she is 5 weeks old.
Hi, I'm Annie Hall. I'm an architect here in San Diego, and I have 1 baby girl, Lady Eleanor, and she is with us here today. And yeah.
How old is Eleanor?
And Eleanor is 9 weeks old.
I'm Jennifer Oliver. I am 33, almost 34. I work in arts education, and I have 2 children, one who's 2.5, and my most recent is 5 weeks, almost 6 weeks.
Fantastic. Well, ladies, welcome to the show. So let's kick off today's episode with some unbelievable breastfeeding stories making headlines around the internet. All of these stories are posted on the Boob Group Pinterest board if you want to check them out. So the headline I found for today is called Pediatricians and Hospitals Resolve to Stop Infant Formula Handouts. And so what happened this past week is the American Academy of Pediatrics decided that they do not want to provide formula company gift bags, coupons, and industry-authored handouts to the parents of newborns and infants in the office or in the clinical setting. And their rationale was that research has demonstrated that these free distribution of commercial materials, such as formula samples, diaper bags, formula coupons, and other gifts from these formula company marketing, it endorses formula feeding and creates the impression that clinicians favor formula feeding over breastfeeding. And research demonstrates that this activity decreases exclusivity and duration of breastfeeding. So Jennifer, do you mind if we start with you first? What do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. I was just thinking, I love getting free stuff. So I'm totally bummed if they stop giving free stuff. But at the same time, I think I did, when I remember getting it with Fiona, my first child, I remembered thinking, oh, I'm supposed to find out about this stuff. Oh, I should probably get some formula, because I guess I'm supposed to be feeding with formula. So I think I remember having that thought process, and then it wasn't until later that I realized, oh, I never need this stuff because I'm breastfeeding. So this time, however, I didn't get that. I'm with Kaiser, and they didn't give me any gifts.
Oh, that's because Kaiser's going baby-friendly, and so they don't do these anymore.
Go
that's
Kaiser.
That's really interesting. That's awesome that they've already taken that stance.
But they did give me free stuff. I got a bag and a little changing pad. So.
The interesting thing, though, is probably the bag it probably has the name Kaiser on it.
It does.
Rather than a formula company.
Right,
so they've
does.
already made that change, which is super cool. All right. Miss Ellie's going to get some food right now, so we'll go over to Cherry. Cherry, what do you think about this?
I actually just read about this week, and I thought it was a great move. Because my daughter was born at home, I missed out on all the freebies from the hospital, which I love free stuff too. So at first I was a little sad, and then I realized I probably didn't want anything that they were giving me. me. But I was actually amazed at how much formula started arriving in the mail. And I was like, how do they know that I'm having a baby? Where does this come from? And it's probably from mailing lists and other things that I'd signed up for. And it was really awful because I knew I was going to be breastfeeding, and yet I couldn't throw it away. I had this thought at the back of my head, like, well, what if I do need it? Or what if something happens? And so I kind of like put it out of sight in the garage, and I was like, you know what, I'll donate this to someone who does need it, and I'm sure they'll appreciate the 5 stacks of 5 cans that I have. But I think it's a great thing. And I noticed when I went to the pediatrician's office that as I was walking into the room, on the cupboards, they had little labels labeling every little thing where the thermometers were and this and that. And I noticed that there were 2 cupboards labeled with formula, even in the pediatrician's office, which I kind of found a little disappointing since they were very supportive and very pro breastfeeding. So I think it's a great move.
All right. How about you, Annie?
What I was going to say was that I agree that I think it's a good thing that it's not encouraged. I don't remember seeing it in the hospital or getting freebies for formula itself, but I remember seeing it on websites and looking at their advertisements and what the formula was advertising as a good thing beyond formula, and thinking, oh, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to get this? Because as a new mom, I feel like there's all these things that come at you, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
It's hard to
except for following your instincts. And realizing that it was an advertisement by a formula company, and taking a step back and going, oh, okay, then obviously they're trying to get me to buy something. This is all commercial. So.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you for sharing your opinions on this. And when we come back, we'll get into our information about what you guys have been doing over the past month since we spoke last. So we'll be right back. So today on the Boob Group, we're discussing what Annie, Jen, and Sherry's breastfeeding experiences have been like during their baby's 2nd month of life. So now, ladies, that you have your babies and you're past this month mark, has breastfeeding gotten any easier for you?
Yes and no. I've actually been struggling a lot over the past month, or past 5 weeks now, and we've had quite a couple of issues and hiccups, and every week seems to be something new, and then we get over it, and then there's something else. So it's certainly been challenging, and it's been really eye-opening because it's made me realize why so many women give up. Because if I wasn't as determined as I am, I probably would have just kind of thrown in the towel, a couple of weeks ago. And so, we're sticking in there. And the good news is that none of the issues have anything to do with her. So that was my concern. Is she tongue-tied? Do we have thrush? Is there something wrong with her latch and all of this stuff? But it seems to be more issues with me, that I'm having pain still that seems to be somewhat unexplained. Although, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, it may be Raynaud's disease, which I'd never even heard of. So perhaps we'll talk about that more, but I'm sticking with it, and we have good moments and bad, but the good moments make it worth it when she's latched and there's no pain and everything's going well, and I kind of just snuggling her skin to skin. It's just the most amazing moment, and I just can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to have that moment. Yeah. So all the time.
How about you, Jen? Has it gotten easier?
Yeah, I think for me it's pretty routine. It's pretty easy. Again, this is my second, so so we're not having difficulty with actually latching on or breastfeeding in that regards. We're just having some difficulty because he's having some stomach issues.
Yeah.
And he seems a little bit colicky. My first was the same. So I did the same thing I did with my first, which I just eliminated a lot of things from my diet.
Like what?
I've eliminated dairy in general. And then I've eliminated tomatoes and onions, hard vegetables like cauliflower and broccoli. And then I've also eliminated caffeine, anything spicy. And so I'm left with bread and meat and tofu. But
and
unfortunately,
rice.
soy. I tried to convert to soy products, but my stomach doesn't like them. So I've been having a hard time as far as my diet. That seems to help a little bit. It doesn't get rid of it. The other difficulty that we have is I have a really fast flow, and so he takes in a lot of air, and he has some reflux, and so it'll come up and back down, up and back down. And so with that, we basically just kind of have to take him off and put him back on, and then sometimes I'll pump first before I breastfeed him, hoping that that'll bring it down a little bit. But he's just really colicky, so unfortunately I feel like I just have to sort of suck it up and it'll go away eventually.
Yeah.
But
I remember with my kids, both of them, 6 weeks mark was not a pretty time in our house. Both of my boys were definitely fussy, had a lot of reflux, but they were gaining weight, kind of like your son is as well. And so I was like, well, we'll just kind of power through it. And I remember by 3 months, it definitely started getting better on our part. I know you guys kind of had hoped that with Fiona that it would get better at 3 months.
Yeah, I think so. And I can't remember if it didn't or did.
Yeah.
It seems for sure by the time she starts eating solid foods that it gets better. But I can't remember if it got better at 3 months or not.
Yeah.
So I think there was a little bit of hope that it was her and not me, and so therefore with the second baby I'd sort of be starting afresh and I wouldn't have these problems, and so when I started seeing them coming, and I think I saw them coming really about 3 weeks, it was sort of disheartening. I just thought, no, another colicky baby. I'm never going to get to enjoy this infant stage.
Absolutely.
So it's been a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. How about you, Annie? How are things going with you and Miss Eleanor, who's trying to feed here and is kind of ticked off?
Case in point.
Yeah.
Like Cherry said, it's been...
Does she just want to be helped?
Here, let's burp her.
Okay, here.
Let's see what happens. So I would say yes and no.
Yeah.
That it's easier from the stance of my confidence and the maneuvering of this baby around my body, and being comfortable with what's the flow that's coming out of me. I just still think that it's crazy that milk is being generated for food. I just can't believe it.
I have those moments where I'm just in awe.
Right.
Are you still having that?
I am, and she has clogged eye duct, and so everyone says put breast milk in her eyes, and so I go okay, and I've put it in her eye, and I go that's milk. I'm putting my milk that I've generated. I make food. This is wild, but
it's actually healed though, hasn't it?
It's making it so much better.
That's awesome.
It's amazing to me. It's wonderful. So I think what we've struggled with, Ellie and I, is my flow issues. One is a overproducer, and so she gets frustrated on the other one when it doesn't flow. And then I think she's done, but she's not done, and so it's just learning her cues.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I've experienced some issues with the overproducer because she's tried to stop the flow, and so she pinches, and so I have swelling, and I have we think a vasospasm maybe, and so I'm learning all about these new things that I didn't know were even possible beforehand. So I had what I had told you, Robin, was that I thought that after a couple months, or I don't know what my timetable was in my head, that it would just be easy after a certain point, that there wouldn't be new things popping up. But like you were saying, like with children, or maybe it was you, Jen, like with parenting, it's like parenting, new things just pop up and you face it as it comes along. So I just get that it's going to be a challenge throughout, but it's still going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
I hope.
There will be things that arise throughout, but yeah, hopefully more good days than bad.
Yeah, and most of the time, I would have to say most of the time we get it, and it's okay. And I take a break from it, and I pump, and I give her bottles so I can give this one side a break. But
okay. So how often are you ladies breastfeeding right now? Have you gotten into more of a pattern than maybe just what your babies were doing when they were like 2 weeks and 3 weeks old when we talked last time?
Not really. I mean, I think things have been pretty consistent, but we're just, feeding her on demand, and which can be very intense at times.
Yeah.
But she seems to be, I would say every 2 to 3 hours, which was what I was aiming for before. I think that's one thing that's gotten easier, though, because before it was me constantly looking at the clock and timing it and how long has it been and worrying about waking her to feed her. And now she's doing it on her own. So
cool.
She's, I don't have to worry. Rarely do I have to feel like it's been too long since I've fed her. She just wakes up and, I can kind of see her trying to shove her whole hand in her mouth. And usually we can get to her before she's crying. So really learning some of those early cues, and it's been helping out a lot.
Oh, good. How about you, Jen? Are you guys feeding on somewhat of a routine or pattern right now?
I think we do. We have a pattern in the evening time for sure, which I feel like is such a blessing. So she does feed before she goes to sleep, which usually is around 7 p.m., and then she will wake
He?
up. Oh my gosh, that's right. I have a he. I was just holding Ellie, Annie's baby, who's a she. Sorry, he, yes, my child, Bryson.
This is what happens when you have two children.
This is what happens. You know what? I refer to him as a she often. So then he wakes up twice, and I feed him both times throughout the night, and then he sleeps till I think probably about 6 a.m.
Cool.
So that seems to be pretty regular throughout the day. I don't know if it's too regular, but he still sort of feeds in chunks again. So he feeds a lot when he wakes up, and then not again for an hour and a half or two, and then he'll feed several times again. So it seems like he's kind of feeding in these chunks, and I would say probably there's about 4 or 5 of those chunks throughout the day.
Yeah. How about you, Annie?
I'm all screwed up because she was sick, and so she was feeding about every hour to 2 hours. And then
Nose
waking
clogged,
up,
so having a
nose
hard
clogged,
time.
waking up in the middle of the night, and I had a really hard time remembering what just happened. And in the middle of the night, actually, I woke up, and then as I'm breastfeeding her and just about done, I couldn't remember waking up and taking her out of her crib. I just was sleeping. So now I think that she's getting a little bit healthier, and now that she's at 9 weeks, I'm speaking probably just from today, but I'm noticing that she is going to feed about 2 to 3 hours, more so 3 hours, if I can make sure that she gets the 4 ounces, closer to 4 ounces each time. So I would say that it's 4 to 5 times during the day, and then if I can get her enough at night, she'll sleep through the night and wake up at 4:30 or 5.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And do you find that you have to focus as much on latching now that your baby kind of learned how to do it? Do you have to pay as much attention, or are you able to actually, maybe turn on the television and watch TV or read a book or something while your baby's feeding? Annie, you want to take that one?
Sure. I feel like I have to hold my breast on both sides to get it in the right place for her. But almost more so on the overproducer side because it's painful, and so if I hold it in a place, she won't pull on it as much. But that is something I wanted to speak to my lactation consultant about because I hear her sucking. I can hear the suck, and I would like to. I don't know how to work on that. Because I look at her mouth and her latch, and it's fine. So once she's on there, it's fine. It's just I think it's the milk coming too fast that she's pulling, trying to stop it, slow it down. So those are just my thoughts.
How about you, Jen?
Yeah, I think I've been a bit lazy. I don't know if I've really concentrated too much on the latch, so it hasn't been difficult for me since the beginning. Although I am noticing now that he's starting to click a little bit, like he's almost like pulling off or slipping. Mm-hmm. And I have a towel sort of like as backup right away because I think it's that I produce so much so fast, and it kind of gets caught in the bottom of his mouth, and it starts to sort of drip out, and then the clicking starts to happen. So I keep taking him off, drying myself, drying him, try again. So that I guess it has been a little bit of a challenge, and that's been more recent, like the last couple weeks.
Yeah, the clicking can definitely come from an oversupply, and so essentially it's the baby trying to put a kink in the water hose.
Yeah.
And so they push their tongue up which can be painful, but they're pinching the nipple to slow it down a little bit, and so they're losing their suction too, which you've nailed. There's too much in his mouth, and so he's slipping all over the place, and so hopefully that'll resolve soon. But I find that most women, their milk supplies kind of get in their really good groove by about 12 weeks, where their body kind of knows what it needs to be producing. So you're halfway there. But that's a really helpful idea to have a towel and wiping it off, so that way you're kind of starting from scratch again and getting back on so he's not sliding all over the place. So how about you, Cherry? Do you have to pay attention?
That's good to know because I've been experiencing the exact same thing. Yeah, she's getting better. I mean, I kind of think that I thought that I would just help her out a little bit at the beginning, and then she would just kind of get it. And obviously, she's not there yet. I feel like I do need to do the compression, sort of the boob sandwich for her and help her. And also, when she's really calm, for the most part, she'll just latch and stay on. But sometimes if she's a little fussy or she's kind of like looking around all over the place, I kind of feel like I need to hold the boob, make sure that everything's all coming together and hold her there. But I have noticed a couple of times, we co-sleep. and I'll nurse her in bed, sort of side lying at night. And sometimes I'll kind of just fall asleep with her there, and all of a sudden I'll wake up and I'll just hear this sort of like chomp, and she's just sort of like woken up and hungry and latched on herself. And I'm like, good girl, almost like want to wake my husband up to tell him what she just did. So definitely seeing that she's starting to be able to do it by herself a little bit, but for the most part, I'd say she still needs a lot of help.
Yeah,
so.
One thing I remembered around 6 weeks with my oldest son, Ben, is we were traveling up north, and I needed to nurse him in public, and it was the first time I'd ever, not really assisted him, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to do this with a blanket over me and all this kind of stuff. And so I remember lifting up my shirt, making sure that my husband he was protecting that I wasn't showing everyone all my goods, and also my back fat, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember saying to him, okay, so I have to try to latch him, and just like you said with Callie, all of a sudden it was like gulp, 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 and I looked, I pulled the front of my shirt down and to take a peek, and he had totally latched on all by himself, and I was like, wow, I've been helping you for the past couple weeks now, and you've probably already knew what you were doing. So I found that was a real defining moment in our breastfeeding relationship. Wow, I might help him latch just a tad, but he really could do it on his own.
Sometimes I test it out during the day. I kind of don't help her and just see what happens, and it's hit or miss, and when it's miss, it's really painful. Ouch, no, give me my nipple back. So we kind of I've eased back on that and gone back to helping a little more.
So Terry, you had mentioned that you guys you like to do side lying in the middle of the night. What are your favorite positions, ladies? Have you found have you tried a couple different ones? Do you kind of have your go-to? Terry, what else are you doing besides this side lying?
Yeah, it just depends. I did discover pretty early that I was hating the first nursing pillow that I had, so I went out and bought a different one and found that was helping a lot better. We're kind of doing a little bit of everything. Sometimes it just depends. We started off doing the football hold at the beginning, and it wasn't really working out for me. I think it was a little awkward, and I think I was just so scared that I was kind of going to drop her, holding her with one arm. But lately I found that can be really helpful to go back to that, especially when she's nursing on the left. I'm right-handed if I need to kind of multitask a little bit, because then she's not totally in the way and I can do something else. Somehow she seems to time that she wants to eat when my husband's bringing me dinner. So I'm worried I'm going to mess all over her, but I've kind of just been playing around with all sorts of different positions, and it's no one favorite so far, but definitely in bed at night the side lying is the laziest / easiest option.
Nice. How about you, Annie?
I think I have just a traditional, I don't know what you call it. Is it when she's on her side?
Hey, you guys do a lot of kind of leaning back, so more of a laid back breastfeeding.
So the laid back breastfeeding. That's correct. So let's start this over. Yes, Robin. I practice the laid back method. But that's because of my flow. So we've started that from the very beginning, is doing that for my flow. But then I forget, and I am on the couch and I'm really laid back, and she's freaking out on the one side that's not the fast flow, and I don't know why. And then I realize that when I go to the Wednesday group and I'm up against a hard surface and it works so easy and she does so well in public, it's because I'm up against a hard surface and I'm not cozying up into a couch. So I have to remember my position when I'm laid back and switch it when I go to the other side. And then I've also tried a diagonal hold for the fast flow because of my swelling and that side, to just help her latch differently onto the nipple. And it's kind of I don't know if it's working. But.
Yeah. Oh. Jen, how about you?
I was just trying to think if I know what any of it's called, but I don't.
I just
lay him across my chest. I use the same hold. I don't rotate much. So I lay him across my chest. I lean back because I have a fast flow. Sometimes I lean really far back if I can hear him just gulping and choking. That doesn't seem to really make a difference, but somehow I keep trying different things. And then I do have to lean forward a little bit sometimes to get him to latch on, and then I'll lean back.
Okay. I was going to ask you that because I've been trying to do the laid back with her, and I find that she latches differently, and sometimes it hurts more, and it's more of a challenge to get her latch and then laid back. Oh, oops, she fell off. Let's do it again. So
yeah, I definitely if sometimes he latches on pretty easily, but if for whatever reason he's not latching on easily or he's half asleep, I'll lean forward, get him latched on, and then hold him in place. I also am really small breasted, so like I don't have a lot of options. There's no there's nothing hanging off to like lean to the side or go different ways. So it's like they're just right in front of me. Those are my options.
I hear you. I'm the same way in side lying. Actually, I was never very good at it
can't.
because I didn't have enough boobage to like flip into.
There's nothing to move any direction.
Annie, were you going to make a comment on the opposite side?
Why, yes. Because of the fast flow and the large breasts that these have become, the flow of the milk comes out very fast. And I learned from my dear friend Jen to allow the milk to spray first, let it come in, and not have her drink that part, because that's when she starts to squeeze and hurt me. But you don't mean to. and then so I pull her off, and then I put a towel over it, or I spray my husband. Show him my new skills. And then she gets back on, and I think I'm still kind of working that part out. But.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, when we come back, we'll discuss how Annie, Jen, and Sherry are dealing with night feedings, bottle feedings, and finding support from their family and friends. So we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. So let's talk about night feedings now. You had all three of you had kind of mentioned that your babies are feeding on a little bit more of a pattern. And so do you find that at this stage where your babies are, almost 6 weeks and 9 weeks, that you're starting to get more sleep? How about you, Jen?
Yeah, I actually feel blessed with Bryson. He's a fantastic sleeper compared to my first daughter, Fiona. I just remember thinking with Fiona going to go to bed and thinking, here we go. We're going in for the night fight. Like, just, dreading going to sleep, because I knew that she would wake up over and over and over again, crying, etc. So Bryson actually has this fantastic schedule, and he's had it since day one, which I'm happy with because it's so much better than I'm used to, which is he wakes up, he goes to sleep, he wakes up after 4, sometimes 5 hours, and I feed him. And then he goes back to sleep for another hour or so. He wakes up, I feed him again. He goes back to sleep, and then we're in the morning time. So I've only really woken up maybe twice through the night. And it's fantastic. I can't tell you how much I love it. My daughter, on the other hand, she actually still wakes up. She's 2.5, and she wakes up at least once a night. She's just a horrible sleeper, and all 4 of us are sharing a room. Nice. So she's 2.5. She's still sleeping in my bed. Drives my mother nuts. But it works for her, and she sleeps better in our bed than she does anywhere else. And then Bryson sleeps in the bassinet next to us, and he actually is great in a bassinet. I just feel like I feel like I got to win here. I think it's possible that he's going to actually sleep in his own bed.
And Fiona's still going to be with you guys.
Fiona's still going to be in our bed. So that part's really exciting to me.
Nice. Cherry, how about you? What does your night schedule kind of look like?
There's no schedule.
There's no schedule.
People ask me about the word schedule. And I was
and
like,
the schedule,
I
actually wouldn't say that, but just kind of what is your pattern kind of looking at?
She's just up consistently every 2 to 3 hours, and there's no the first time she goes down is at a certain time. It just sort of depends on when. And I think one of the things that I'm trying to get better about is that, if I'm nursing her and she falls asleep and I'm holding her, sometimes I'll sit there holding her for an hour, and then I think, okay, let me try to put her down now. Well, now I'm an hour into the 2-hour nap, so now I've given myself an hour to really sleep, and I'm trying to break myself of that. But sometimes when I put her down, she'll wake up, so it's just easier to just hold her and just take an hour of peace and quiet. But it's getting a lot better. I've noticed that I think I've just adjusted to not sleeping. I never thought that would be possible, being up every 2 hours, but it's just become normal, and that's the way that it is. And we tend to kind of go to bed a lot later with her, but then get up a lot later in the morning, which is fine because neither myself nor my husband have anywhere to be. But I've found that I'm able to sort of just deal with the night a little better, especially with the side sleeping. I don't quite have to wake up as much, and I'm not quite as worried and panicked about this brand new baby in my bed that I was the first few nights.
Very cool. How about you, Annie?
I think from the beginning we would put her down around 8 o'clock, or maybe in the beginning it was 10, but that's sort of the pattern was 8 and then 10 and then 12. So every 2 hours in the very beginning, 2 to 3 hours. And then very early, it wasn't me that put her on a schedule of any kind. She just went down at 8 or 9 and then slept until 3. Yeah. So she skipped the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock time. So now that she's been sick, she kind of reverts back to that. So I think maybe it's more of a comfort thing, but she was also not eating as much each time. So now that I can recognize that, I can sort of strategize and maybe give her a little extra in the evening so that she sleeps a little bit longer now that she's getting older. So we've been blessed with a really good, easy sleeper.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ladies, I forget. Cherry, are you going back to work?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, you are. And Jen, you're going to be going back as well?
Yeah, I actually start work next week.
Oh,
wow.
Wow. So clearly I guess I shouldn't assume, but I would imagine that you guys have started offering bottles. And so who offered that first bottle and how was it? Did it work the first time? So Jen, how about you?
Yeah, sure. We offered a bottle right away because when we went in for our first checkup after we left the hospital, Bryson had lost a pound. So that was over the 10%. And so we were instructed by our pediatrician to go home right away and feed him formula. So that exact same thing happened with our first. So that was not strange to us. So we stopped off at the store because we didn't get any samples, and proceeded to feed him his first bottle, and he took it really easily. I think so. He was only just maybe 3 or 4 days old, and then since then. He hasn't had a bottle since, so he just got that first bottle, and then my milk came in, and everything turned out great. So we haven't actually fed him a bottle since then.
So now that you're going back to work next week, is it
I started pumping and collecting, and I remember thinking of the liquid gold in my freezer. And then I also remember thinking it doesn't go as far as you think it will, because they eat so much more in the bottle than they do on the breast, or at least that was my experience with my first. And so I have several supplies in the icebox, and I'm already thinking, I think that's only going to make it like maybe a couple hours. And also too, with my first, she was fussier when I left, and the only way my husband was able to calm her down was to just feed her a lot. So I'm kind of prepared for that. I'm prepared for him having to use formula as well, if that's the case. Whatever he needs to get through it. So I start work next week, and it's just in the evenings. I start teaching, and so it'll be I'll probably leave the house around 5, and I won't be back till maybe 10. Yeah. Is that right? Something around there. Yeah. So that'll be a good 5 hours for my husband, and hopefully it'll work out, and he'll feed from the bottle easily, but I actually don't really know yet. So I'll let you know on our next
Sounds
session.
good. Cherry, how about you?
Well, we gave her a bottle pretty much at exactly 1 month mark, and I was very nervous about it because a lot of people had said try and introduce it, around 3 to 4 weeks, and then randomly as we approached that point, I had a couple people say, "Oh no, just wait until like 2 weeks before you go back to work." And my sister-in-law's 5-month-old will not take a bottle, and they've kept trying, and so I just was petrified about this. And so I was like, okay, we've got to do it now. I didn't want to do it too early with all of the issues that were going on, and I actually bought this fancy schmancy bottle online that I had read a lot of moms who had struggled and worked their way through every bottle finally landed on this one. And so I thought, well, why waste my time buying all of these other ones? Let's just go straight to that. And it was petrifying. I remember she was hungry, and I decided, okay, I'm going to go pump right now, and then we'll put it right in. That way I didn't have to figure out, like, how do we defrost and thaw and heat the milk and all of that. That was just too much. We still haven't gotten to that yet. But I pumped really quickly. Fortunately, because of my oversupply, it took like 3 minutes for me to, pump like 8 ounces, and I could fill a little bottle for her. And I put, I think, only 1.5 ounces in at first. I just kind of wanted to, go slow, and left my husband with her, and then went and hid around the corner. And I knew I probably shouldn't be there, but I couldn't bear to not be there. And I'm sitting on the stairs, and my first thought was, please let her take the bottle. Please let her take the bottle, please. And I could hear her fussing and crying, and I could hear my husband sort of struggling a little bit with her. And then all of a sudden, it just went absolutely quiet, and she was taking the bottle. And then I was like, please don't let her prefer the bottle. And one of the things that I had read about this particular brand was that their slow flow nipple is really, really slow. And so my husband could tell she was struggling a little bit with the bottle. And I was like, that's right, you struggle with that bottle. I don't want that bottle to be too easy. But she took it, and then 2 days later, we tried again with 2 ounces. And both times, because I gave her such a little, right afterwards, she kind of came to me, and then I nursed her a little bit more. So, and we haven't actually done it since. That was last week. And I'm like, all right, we need to do it again, because I don't want to now wait 3 months, and, but I figure our plan was that we would try and do it just a couple times a week. So.
Well, Annie, before you answer, I do want to clarify something that Cherry had mentioned too. And we have actually another episode on this about moms going back to work and when to introduce a bottle and stuff, because there are lots of babies who at about 3 months, 4 months, or 5 months decide that they don't want to take a bottle anymore if they haven't done it kind of on a regular basis. And so, my recommendation is to start a bottle between about 3 and 6 weeks, right in between those 2 growth spurts. And definitely, unless you're going back to work at 6 weeks, it wouldn't be my recommendation to wait until 2 weeks before you go to work, because work is stressful enough, and the last thing you want to deal with is a baby that's not taking a bottle. So I'm glad you kind of trusted your instinct and decided to do it.
And trusted you, because you were...
But definitely there can be a window of time, and so not for all babies, but for some, and so it's worth it to kind of get in that window, and then, like you said, offer it a couple times a week, so that way it's just part of the routine, and it's time for partners to bond and things like that. So
one of the things I need to learn is that I need to take advantage of that time and go have my 15-minute walk instead of like hovering around the corner and taking pictures of Daddy giving Callie her first bottle. We'll get there.
Exactly. Annie, how about you? What was the first bottle experience like for your hubby?
It was easy, actually. She took the bottle really well. Yeah. She's so easygoing.
Just stop it. There's no bragging.
She spits up like crazy. You want to talk about that? Because I'm afraid she's going to die. No, I gave her 2 ounces in a bottle, and it was fine. And then I thought, okay, well, I don't want her to prefer the bottle over me, so let's just stop it. And she took it. That's fine. We'll wait until I go back to work. But after listening to you and listening to a couple other women who've had their babies and gone back to work, I started giving her one about 3 times a week.
Cool.
So
she's still doing okay with it?
Absolutely. Or maybe it's more. It just depends on the day, and if I wanted to give her a little extra. Like last night, I wanted to give her a little extra, and just needed to give me a rest, and so that's what I did. So it's working okay, and I have some in the freezer, and I have some in the fridge, and I'm just we'll see how it works.
I just had a brilliant idea.
Yes, Jen, please
for
tell
my
us.
own situation. I was just thinking I should probably start doing more of the bottle because I'm not really doing it. And then I just thought, in the middle of the night, I should pump.
Yeah.
Let my husband get... That makes it so my husband has to get up in the middle of the night and I can actually keep sleeping. This is a brilliant idea. I think I'm going to start.
All right. And my husband actually asked me if there was a way that he could help me, and I'm still trying to figure out how, because I forget that... I asked him, do you want to put her down? Do you want to give her a bottle? And he said, absolutely. And I said, well, I'm not hoarding her. I just need you to ask, because I forget, and I would prefer to give her my breasts. But if you want to bottle feed her, then I'm okay with that. But he had asked if there was any way he could help me, like in the middle of the night when he's not going to school or going to work. And I thought, well, you could, but they fill up and as hard as a rock, and I hurt. So
you have
that
to
doesn't
you
help
have to
me.
pump, or somehow you have to
still
relieve
up
the
and
pressure.
pumping. Yeah.
And if you're side lying and nursing, that's easier than getting up, because for me, I got to get up and get the pump and get the bra on and get it all set up, and to me that just takes more time and effort and wakes me up more.
Totally.
Definitely. All right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences breastfeeding your babies during their 2nd month of life. It's amazing how things have changed in such a small period of time. And I really look forward to continuing our conversation in the upcoming months. Before we wrap things up today, here's Denise Altman with some nursing basics for the new mom.
Hey there, Boob Group. My name is Denise Altman, and I am a private practice IBCLC, otherwise known as a registered lactation consultant. Private practice means I have my own business, and I specialize in prenatal education and breastfeeding support. This session is about prenatal prep to breastfeeding, something I definitely have an opinion about. First off, it's all about the birth in the very beginning. So this is something that you should be thinking about from early on. Don't wait till your 3rd trimester to start preparing for birth. think about what your dreams are, what your hopes are. How do you imagine your birth occurring? What is the scenario? How long do you think it will take for your baby to be born? How do you know if your imagination and your dreams are going to equal reality? What do you know about birth, and where did you learn it? This is something that most women dream about when they start thinking about becoming a mother, but sometimes it doesn't go beyond the dreaming phase. It's your job to educate yourself and your partner so that you are prepared when that day comes. I hope this information on this session can get you started on exploring your options. For additional tips on choosing a breastfeeding class, birth prep, prenatal breastfeeding prep, please visit my website at featurebaby.com and keep listening to the Boob Group.
Thank you to all of our listeners. I hope you'll visit our website, theboobgroup.com, and add your stories about breastfeeding your 1 to 2 month old in the comment section of this episode's page. If you have any questions about today's show or the topics we discussed, please call our Boob Group hotline at 619-866-4775, and we'll answer your question on an upcoming episode. Coming up next week, we'll be discussing tight frenula and how they can affect breastfeeding. Thanks for listening to the Boob Group, because mothers know breast.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.